Hi everybody, I hope you had a wonderful week building analytic web apps in Python. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build manufacturing and production line style dashboards, just like the one you see right here. You see how we can start and stop it. You see how we can disable the whole app or enable it. This dashboard, for example, is another manufacturing dashboard. We're going to learn this toggle component, how to create that, and how to put all this information onto a graph that updates every second when it's measuring the voltage or the current. And this type of dashboard, right, where we have we're sweeping information here on this graph, and then we're moving using this joystick to move this little robot to different places. So these kind of dashboards are manufacturing dashboards that are built with a Dash DAQ. This is the main platform, and it has here all the components that you can create with it. I'm going to add this link below the video so you can actually go in here and read more about these components. We're going to review some of these components so later you can learn how to use this information from this tutorial to create your own manufacturing or production line style web apps. However, you don't need to use this only, you're not limited only to manufacturing web apps. A lot of these components can be used for your regular dashboards and your regular applications in Python. For example, the start button. You can use that for any type of application that you want. You can use the thermometer. I've used a thermometer to, instead of numbers, I've used this for dollars. So like from 0 to the donation goal, fundraising goal of $10,000. And you can see as more money comes in, the thermometer goes up and up. The toggle switch. This is just a true, false, on, off toggle switch you can use for anything on any web app. Even this dark theme provider is very cool. If you want to, you can just change the theme of your whole app from dark to light using Dash DAQ. So we're going to go over these components and we're going to build these two dashboards. Simple dashboards. I just want to show you how to connect the components together on a single web page in pure Python, so then you can go with this information and expand on it and build anything you want. So this is the room temperature that app we're going to build, where as we change the temperature, you'll see that the LED display changes and the thermometer changes as the temperature changes anywhere from 30 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Also, you can use the color display here to change the color of the display. Green, blue, red, whatever you want it to look like, purple, however you want it to look like. And the second Dash app we're going to build is a simple one with two gauges that measure fake data randomly every second. Data comes in from our hypothetical factory about pressure, water pressure from these two valves, and they're on this bar graph, and you have a toggle switch to show this tank either gallons or liters or gallons. All right. To start and to follow along, I would really recommend you go into the link below the video. It's my GitHub link. Feel free to sign up to GitHub, follow me, star me. But what you really want to do is take this to Py files, DAQ2 and DAQ.py, if you're using Sublime or Visual Studios or PyCharm, and just copy paste them into your computer, into your PyCharm, so you can follow along. It'll be a lot easier. If you're using Jupyter, I also created this for you. So make sure to take these two files, the IPYNB files and Jupyter files notebook, and we can do the same thing here. You see, we created our app here on Jupyter. You just have to change a little bit of the code. I already did that for you. So just download it and make sure to use this as you follow along. Okay, so let's get started. So how are we going to build this dashboard? The first thing you want to do is you want to import all these libraries. We're going to use the Python file. But we're going to import all these libraries. If you don't have them, just pip install dash into your terminal and pip install dash DAQ, because I don't think that comes within Dash automatically yet. And then we're going to use this cool CSS file that Plotly built for us. Thank you, Plotly. And we're going to use this Excel sheet inside our app, Excel sheet, sorry, the CSS file, so we can actually style our app. I'm just using the columns, 3 columns here, 4 columns here. That's all we're doing. We're using the class name from the CSS to create rows and columns for each div here, right? That's all we're doing in the CSS. You don't need to know CSS. That's really it. So we started our app, and then we're going to build our layout, okay? This layout has everything that needs to go onto the web page. Actually, we're going to go into this one first, the DAQ2. Okay, go into this one. We're not the DAQ.py. Let's do the DAQ2.py first. It's an easier app. So import these files, same CSS, and here is the layout. So as you can see from the layout, first we have the room temperature in the title. Let's see the room temperature. Right here. As you can see, first we have the room temperature right here, which is right this, and then we have the knob, right? And the knob here is the component that is used to create this, right? So you'll see we have a minimum value of 30, maximum of 100, and the default is 40. So as the app reloads, it will start at 40. You see here is 40, this is 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way up to 100 here. And then the scale is going to be how they jump. It jumps in intervals of 10 from 40 to 50 to 60, at least these lines right here. And then we have the color. I added a gradient color here, so it's ranges blue to red. From blue is from 30 to 75, and red is 75 to 100, which is why you see this color cool that changes from cold to hot. So this is the knob. Now, all of these attributes that we're using for these components, I would really recommend pausing the video and going into the Dash DAQ website, because their Dash documentation is very, very wealthy, very rich, and just go into the knob component and read a little bit about it. Before or after the video. Go into this knob component, more knob examples, and at the very bottom, well, you'll see more examples and how you can change size, how you can change max and color ranges, but at the very bottom, you'll see all the attributes that you can use, all these properties, okay? And so I'm using some of these properties. I'm using the max, I'm using the scale. You can read more about how if they're a dictionary or if they're a string, and they'll be a lot easier to get you started. So we use these attributes, right? And then after the knob, we're creating the next component, which is the thermometer right here on the right. Okay, thermometer doesn't really need a lot. You just need the ID because we're going to use it later in the callback. You need the minimum, the maximum. We should probably put maximum 100 here, and the value is going to be 40. I just want it to be aligned and start with the same value that the knob is starting at 40 as well. Same thing, this is going to be in a new div. This is going to be a new row underneath. We're going to create a LED display. The value is going to be 40, and then it's just going to have a color, okay? And then the color picker, these are the attributes we're using. We're using the ID, the label, and the value, which is a dictionary of key and key value dictionary. The value is the string of the hex, or you can use other types of coloring form. You can use RGBA, this one I'm not familiar with, or the hex, so you can change it here if you want. So you see how this is one row and this is the second row. Now we have to tie everything together. Look, here, this is the callback, and this is what ties everything together. If we take out the callback, if we do not include it, look at what happens. If we only have our layout, as you can see here, only the layout, only the components, you will only have the components. You won't have anything that changes. You see how I move this? This does not change anything. The thermometer doesn't change, nor does the color. Even if you change the color, it doesn't change this. So there's no interactivity. For interactivity in Dash and Dash DAQ, you need the callbacks. So this is why we're going to go into the next section of the callbacks. In this case, we're only going to use one callback. So let's see now how we connect everything together. So when we move the Dash knob, the thermometer and everything else moves as well. Okay? The callback. So here we're going to use two inputs. We're going to take the knob, the value of the knob input, and we're going to take the value of the color picker. And why we're taking them? Because we're not changing anything here. We're not changing anything with our mouse, with our hand on the thermometer. We're only changing this, and we're only changing this with our mouse. So these will be our inputs. And this will be the ID. That's how you recognize what input it is. This is the myNob component, and this is the value attributes. Okay, the value attributes. So inside the callback function, because you have two inputs, you need two arguments. The first one corresponds to the top one, and the second one corresponds to the second one. Okay, and you can call it whatever we want. So this we call knob value, and this we call color chosen. Now look, what we're actually doing here is this refers to the value of the knob, and my knob value right now, my knob ID, my knob value is 40. So right now, this is the same thing as saying 40. However, you don't want to put that 40 because it's going to change. It's going to change from 40 to 50 to whatever the user chooses to change. So you just leave this as a variable that's open and people can change it. Okay, so we have our function, and now we usually put a lot of things inside the function. I usually do df, and I'm changing a data frame. I'm doing a lot inside the function. In this case, you don't need to do anything inside a function. You can immediately return what you need to return to the outputs. Remember, if you saw my previous videos, this is a reminder. If you have 3 outputs, you need to return 3 objects. Okay. And the first output is going to component property, or this is a component property, is going to return, going to be tied to the first object of the return. The second object is tied to the second, and this third is tied to the third. So let's see what's going on here. If I'm returning the knob value that I'm returning, remember, is 40 because that's the default value. If I'm returning 40 here, right? Oops, like this. What I'm actually doing is returning 40 in here, which is the value of the thermometer component. And what this actually means is, this is where the interactivity comes in. The thermometer? Yeah, thermometer, my thermometer ID, we're actually changing the value here to 40. So 40 didn't change anything, but if we put 50, this actually becomes 50. If we change the knob to 51, now this becomes 51 because everything is inside the callback and decorator and inside the callback function. So one last example, if I change this to 65, what is happening? This is changing to 65, this is changing to 65, and this on top changes to 65 as well in the thermometer. So that's how you make all the changes interactively on your Dash manufacturing web app. And the knob, we're going to use the same knob value argument that comes from here, as you know, the same 40 default, is going to go into the second output, which is the value of the LED display. And the value of the LED display is just this. In the beginning is 40, but that will change to 50 or 60 or whatever we change the knob to, 65, 88, and so on and so on. Okay, because we return this into the second output of the LED display. Now look at this. This is different. So far, we've only used value, 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 value. But value is only one type of attribute. Remember, this is the, what is this? This is the not property. We have a value attribute or property. But there are many more. There's style attribute, there's color, there's minimum, there's maximum. So now we're going to change the color attribute of my LED display. So let's go to my LED display. My LED display right here, it has a value attribute, it has a color attribute, and this is the automatic color that starts by default. So if we refresh the page, right here, the default is this color, which is neon green, right? But we want to change that. We want to say, you know what? We don't want it to be neon green. We want it to be whatever this is. This goes into here. And this comes from the input of my color picker. This is this, right? They're all tied together. So let's print this out and see what we're actually seeing. It's always good to print things out. So copy here and print this, save it, and then run it. Stop and rerun. So now we see that it's printing, by default, it's going to print hex, the dictionary hex, and then this. And why is it printing this dictionary? This right here is printing this dictionary because it's the input of my color picker. My color picker, it's the value of my color picker, and this is the value, right? So as I change the value of my color picker, if I change this to blue, this hex right here is gonna go inside here, right? And it does that through the callback. because we changed the color chosen, we chose the dictionary, and now we're changing the dictionary to, we're taking the value of the hex key. So we're taking this value from the dictionary. So that is really it. That is how you create, how you tie the Dash DAQ components together to create this beautiful manufacturing style web app. It's pretty simple, but it's a nice web app. Let's go to a more complex web app. A little bit more complex. We have gauges here, and we're putting everything inside a figure. Again, if you don't have a Python like IDE like PyCharm or Visual Studios, just go into JupyterLab and just download in my GitHub under the video, download the Jupyter DAQ for JupyterLab, and you'll see here that you can run this type of. Actually, let's run it right now. Okay, just ran it, it started, and now you have the water valve pressure that updates every second with fake water valve pressure. Okay, I'm going to do this through the PyCharm. Let's stop DAQ2, and let's go into DAQ. All right, this Python file right here. This is a good break for me to drink a little bit of water, and to ask you, if you like this video, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe below, and turn on your notifications. So every week you'll get a notification of a new video that I post on web apps in Python, analytic web apps. And if you think you're gonna if you'd like to support the existence of more tutorials, I'd love you to join my Charming Data Patreon community. The link is under the video as well, so you can consider that. I'd appreciate all the support you can provide. Okay, so in this Python file, this DAQ, we are going to import these libraries, most of which you already imported from the last time, downloaded, and then this CSS. I don't know why I say Excel all the time. And then we're going to go into the layout. And the layout, again, pretty simple. We're just using different components here. Here we're going to use a tank component. So these are some of the attributes: max, value, show current. You don't have to guess the attributes. You don't have to say, Adam, how do I know, how can I create different attributes or what other things I can use? Just go into the tank component inside the Dash DAQ website, and you'll see, I think it's down here below. And read right here all the different attributes or properties that the tank component has. Right? Minimum is by default 0, so I'm not gonna set 0 to it. It's already 0. So we're gonna put max 400. Value by default to start. We're gonna start off with 197. So when we go in here, you'll see that it starts with 197. And then show current value. Yes, I'm going to show 197. I'm going to put units, gallons. This is going to be called gallons here. You're going to see the text. And then, and that's it. And then we're going to put this into 3 columns with a CSS. Then we're going to have in the same row, right? We're going to have 2 gauges. I hope I'm saying that word correctly. These 2 gauges right here. All they need is a minimum, a maximum, the start value, and then the label. We're going to call it value 1 and valve 2. Okay, and then the next part of the layout is a toggle switch. This is going to be in another row. In the row underneath, we're going to put the label is going to be liters and gallons, and the value is going to be either true or false. There's no other option. It's a Boolean option, true or false. So the toggle switch is going to be true or false, liters or gallons. And then the last row is going to be a graph with an empty, just a graph component. It's going to be an empty figure. There's nothing in there yet. With the callback, with the interactivity, we're going to create that figure. And underneath, this is hidden. This is just an interval because we do not have a real database connected to a real factory, connected to real water valve pressures. I wish I did here in the next room. We have to use fake data and update the data as if it's coming from the database. We're going to update it with an interval. Dash core component interval is another component that allows you to do that. It will allow you to set intervals of time. So here I'm saying every second, activate something, activate the interval, activate the component, which will activate the callback. So every second something is going to happen because we are going to put this timing right here, this input, the component ID timing, we're going to put the n intervals, 0, we're going to put in here. So after 1 second, this is going to be 1. After 2 seconds, this is going to be 2. So every time this is activated, every second the interval is activated, it's going to activate the full callback. Okay? So let's see, now that we went into the layout, let's see how we are manipulating the callback. So the callback, we're going to be taking the n interval, and every second, right here, we have one argument, one input, so we need one argument. And inside here, we're going to do some things and whatever, like build a figure, and then we're going to spit out 3 objects. Why are we spitting out 3 objects? Remember, because we have, like the first app, we have 3 outputs. So if you have 3 component properties, you need 3 outputs, 3 return objects. So let's see what these return objects are. Remember, the first one refers to the first component property here, the second to the second, and so on and so on. So let's see what we are creating. We are returning these. What are these? The first one is just a pressure. It's just a pressure object. We're just saying do a random range, because I'm importing this from the very top, random range. Do a random range of 0 to 10. So every second, because this is activated every second, I'm going to have, might be 2.2 random, this might be a 4, this might be a 6, this might be a 7, a 9. Every single second, this random is going to choose a number between 0 to 10. And same thing for pressure number 2, because we have 2 valves, so I'm going to create 2 different fake pressure data. And then I'm going to put everything into a fig. Before, let's skip this fig for a second. Let's see what we do with this. We're putting the pressure 1 and pressure 2. We're returning them in the first 2 outputs, right here and right here. What are these? These are my Daq 1 and my Daq 2, which is right here above. It's inside their value. My Daq 1, it's returning it here, and it's returning it inside here. So if the random number was 4, and for pressure 1, this is going to be 4, right? If the random number was 9, this is going to be 9 right now. So this is how we use this interactivity in Python in Dash by putting everything inside the callback, and especially the value, because this is what we're updating. And now the figure, our third output is the figure, which is our returning the third object. And here we're just building a figure with Go graph objects in Plotly. A very powerful tool to create graphs, and we're just building a simple graph, right? Where we have as x-axis, we have the 2 valves, as you can see here, the 2 valves, and we have the y-axis is the 2 pressures. The pressure 1 refers to the valve 1, pressure 2 refers to valve 2. So these are the random y-axis numbers that are going to show up on the y-axis, right? You see? So they correspond. 2 corresponds to this, and 1 corresponds to this. So now we're returning this figure, and this, I'm just going to put this from 0 to 10 so it doesn't jump around, so it's stable. And just returning this figure. I return this figure inside the figure attributes of my graph. This is not the values, it's the figure attributes. The figure attributes right now is an empty dictionary, which will accept Plotly graph objects or Plotly express objects. If you don't know what Plotly graph objects are or Plotly express objects are, just click on the video on the top right, and you'll this tutorial you'll learn. I teach all about the difference between Plotly express and Plotly graph objects and when to use each one of them. Okay, let's go into the last callback here. This last callback is just to update the text of the tank. So we're going to take as an input, we're going to take this value, and then we're going to output the something in the tank here, one of the attributes in the tank. So we're taking the input, we're taking the component property value of my toggle switch. What is it by default? By default, as we start the app, my toggle switch is true. So we're going to take true, and we're going to say true. I'm going to call this toggle. You can call it whatever you want. We're going to say if true, if toggle, then return gallons, the string gallons. If not, if false, then return liters. Did I write this correctly? I hope I did. If I'm returning liters, then where am I returning these 2 things? These 2 are returning into the component property of the output right here into units. So this is a different attributes. My tank has a units property. Right here, is it my tank? My tank. So it has a units property, and it's just a string, right? So whatever goes in here actually is visible right here. So that's why if I return liters as a string, this becomes liters. The first in gallons, this becomes gallons. Okay, and we all did this through a simple dash callback decorator right here in a callback function. If you have questions about how to use this, I recommend seeing the first video on introduction to Dash, so you can learn all about the callback and how these are better used. But that's really it. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to support these tutorials, I'll be more than happy to see you become part of the Charming Data community. It means a lot to me, and it allows me to create more of these very time-consuming and resource-heavy tutorials. You'll have the link below the video if you want. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe below, and turn on your notifications so you can see. You'll get notified every week when I do another video to teach you how to create analytic web apps in Python. Have a good day. Keep practicing. Never give up, and most importantly, we are better together. So always help each other out. All right.